Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to a brand new video of my The Gathering, and in today I will be going over this deck that I built. It's called JUND CASCADE, and it's basically three colors: red, green, and black. And my idea here was to try to emulate kind of like the same idea of June in Alara. For those guys who remember, it was like, and the Cascade enables at that time were Broodbear Elf, but now we got Boarding Party. So this got me pretty excited to actually try and play the build. So I also added 4 blinding, and we will explain each card in a second. So let's start with the mana base. So in order to go for 3 colors, I decided to go with 4 Ash Barons because this helps me enable the colors in the early turns. Then the 2 Bajuka bugs are because I didn't want to bring a lot of cards or any cards against Graveyard Hate in the sideboard, while this is very good on the main deck because you can also bounce those with these other cards, like for example the Golgari Rot Farm and the Grulturf, because these are the bounce lands for the deck. So you can actually do something like exile and then bounce the Bajuka Bug and then play it again in order to exile another thing. So I was actually thinking of running the third Bajuka Bug, but if I don't see like a lot of change in the meta, at least on leagues, I wouldn't be adding it. On a challenge, I will probably be switching the Mortuary Mind for a third Bajuka Bug, but at this point, I don't think that's going to be the case because Mortuary Mar in my case has been paying off because let's say for example one of these creatures get counter. If you have a cascade creature, like for example Boarding Party, you can put it on top and then cascade into that one. Also, a pretty sick combo that sometimes happens is that it's that you can put on top Boarding Party and then cast an Annoyed Altisor, so it will trigger the cascade for Boarding Party, and the Boarding Party will cascade as well. So that's pretty sick because basically for casting one card you get a lot of value. And the dream play is to do something like another Altisor into Boarding Party into Blinding or into Torn, or really pretty much into anything. And yeah, that's basically the main plan. As far as the other considerations, I added more swamps and more greens than mountains from my initial build because basically the red is just the splash. I mean, I have a couple of them, but the really hardcore removal it's on black. Also, we are running one snoof out, and also we are using the green in order to ramp into Visionary and Pulse of Murasa. Pulse of Murasa have been overperforming for me because really I was just well, using one Pulse of two Pulse of Murasa and one Rip in the Grapes. But I found out myself that when I was casting Boarding Party on Altisors, something I cascade into Rip in the Grapes with no creatures on the graveyard. While if I cascade into Boarding Party with Pulse of Murasa, usually most of the time I do have at least one of these on the graveyard or the Jund Panorama in the graveyard, so I can get it back and also gain 6 life, which is pretty good having that on the main deck, just because there's a lot of burn and some aggro decks that you need to first deal with the early creatures by taking a couple of damage and then you stabilize, and this helps us to stabilize a lot. But in order to continue with the mana base, Jund Panorama, it's also been performing really good for me because here's the thing. I was using at first Expedition. How is it called? Evolving Wilds I was using first evolving wells, but the thing that I found out is that all the time it enters the battlefield tab, while some of the time I usually end up playing this just as it is and never cracking it, and it's because by turn 3 I either want to have like a mana on tap for a Llanowar Visionary or a Bonder's Ornament. And sometimes when you are at the top of the curve, you really want to get to 6 mana as fast as possible. And like for example, if you have 5 lands in play and the one you to deck is JUND Panorama, it's pretty cool because you can cast things right away, while enter the battlefield tab is not always the best case, and in a spot that I need the extra mana, I can just say, well, have my 2 lands untapped and pass in turn 2, and if they don't do anything that requires me to spend any removal, then I just crack it at the end of the turn, so that's not that big of a deal. The Striving Groove, I think I've been switching them over in and out, but I think using one-on-one it's probably the right way to go with these lands. I was also thinking in running 23 lands, but really didn't know what to cut. Probably a pools, but I'm really happy of the results by me having 3 pools in main because of the burn matchups. So that's it for the mana base. Let's go to the actual deck, and the deck runs pretty much around 13 removals. Let me see. I got rid of one by mistake, so just need to add it back. Yeah, so the deck runs almost 13 removals if last time I counted them right. So let's see, yes, this is, yep, 13 removals, and each one has its purpose. Like for example, Lightning probably is the one that I'm cyber the most, but usually want it in order to deal with early threats, but you don't want like a lot of copies. Also, I was thinking of switching them over for this figure because you want to have your early remover on black instead of red, but I really like the fact that this can go to the face as well, so I decided to keep them, and it's been paying off because sometimes I can finish off an opponent with just throwing a live one to the face, and also it can answer an early threat by just 1 mana. Chainer's Edict, at first I was just using 2, but then I switched over to 3 because there's a lot of there's a lot of boggles running around and also a lot of mono whites, and the one thing that you can't answer from mono white is the one that's called Laguna because it's 4 mana toughness, and this definitely helps dealing with that because you don't have to care about dealing 3 damage or so. And also this is very good against both mono white and boggles because this doesn't target, so even especially with mono white, if they have some way of protecting this, it doesn't matter, and also gets around high-end Umbra because it doesn't really destroy. He sacrificed the creature, so that's pretty much it. Cast Down basically kills everything on the format, and Terminate. I'm not sure. I'm not too convinced, but I'm also not too sad about this. The thing is that I wanted to have like a multicolor removal spell for things like how is this called, the Guardian of the Guild Pact, which you can basically only kill with this or Edict, and also I can kill a boa with this without caring about and the boa to be regenerated. Fire Prophecy has been a great last minute addition just because this can do a lot of things for you. Like for example, in early turns it can, if you don't have a lot of lands in hand, you can throw this to a creature and cycle one of your less valuable cards in order to find another land. And in the late game, if you happen to top deck this and you need the removal, and you have a bunch of lands in hand, you can actually cycle one of them away and search for another card that's probably better than just a land. Brady, it was actually 2 off, and it was like instead of 1 Fire Prophecy, but I switched it to 1. But the main role for these is to destroy artifacts. Pretty much, you run in border ornaments. You don't want to have your opponent also drawing cards if they have one. So yeah, it's a very good addition in order to deal with other bonders ornaments and also other artifacts that could be running around that can't be killed otherwise. Snoof out, just a one-off. I didn't want to push it a lot. I just running one. It's fine because it gives you like a free spell kill creature, but you don't want to run multiple because there's a lot of like black creatures running around sometimes, and this can't kill an angler, so that's one thing to keep in mind. Suffocating Fumes, it's good main deck because if you're facing a match where you are not planning to cast it, you can cycle it. And I was thinking about adding Fiery Cannonade instead of it, but I think Suffocating Fumes, for the reasons that I explained, is fine, because if you are not using it, like for example in a mono red matchup or a burr matchup specifically, you can just cycle it away. So that's it for the removal. Knight's Whisper, it's for the card advantage value. Just running 2 because you don't want to bleed a lot with this deck. But you also need some sort of card advantage, and this will give you the card advantage. Lanor Visionary is a strictly better prediction Ravager because it basically does the same without losing the life, and also adds mana in order to ramp into an earlier boarding party, and also helps on fixing sometimes. But it's also pretty much just a counter bait, because this basically you don't want your opponent. If I were the blue opponent, I don't want my opponent to draw a card and also me having to spend like a removal on this, because it's basically a 2-for-1 kind of a scenario. So it's been pretty creepy. It's been very undervalued, but I guess it does make sense to run this, because most of the time the control player will like to counter it, only they run Fall from Favor. But you as the JUND player need to know when to play around that. So just keep that in mind. Pulse of Murasa, I already explained. It's basically just to get back, like since you're running just few bigger threats like 4 boarding party and 2 annoyed Altisort, pretty much anything else is going to be like something to put into a lot of pressure the opponent. You actually really need to get this back if they are counter or killed from the graveyard to hand. So that's the main role. The second role is to gain you life and help you with in spots where you are stuck on mana. You can always bring back at the end of the turn one of your lands. So that's pretty good. Also, it helps a little on against the land destroying matchup. And yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a favorable matchup, but I think I've won 2 out of 2 matches I play against that, so it's good for a 3 color deck to be able to do that. Blindings, this is basically just a personal preference for me, but it's been paying a lot because basically blinding, I don't find myself siding them out a lot. I think I don't remember a matchup where I actually sided them out. And it's because blindings are good against control and burn, but also are good against aggro decks. Because let's say, for example, The Stumpy player played like 3 creatures and just kept like 2 cards in hand. And you have like a fiery cannon in post board, so, or even a suffocating fumes. So even though he has played a lot, he may be running some just kind of trick on his hand. So what you can do is to blinding the first turn, take a couple of hits, and the next turn clean the board without having to worry about some sort of combat trick. But also against control, you can cast blinding, and they either need to counter it or lose two cards, and like mind rot effects are pretty undervalued, but are pretty good. Also, and giving 3 damage to the face is no joke by any means, because the deck starts like this. It starts like taking hits and controlling, but all of the sudden it puts the pedal to the metal, because it really just takes one boarding party to get resolved in order to switch things first, to switch the phase from the game, because it's like, well, I'm taking three, and all of a sudden you are probably dead in 2 turns, because this having 6 power, it's no joke. And basically, if you are cascading into removal, then probably your blockers are not going to survive. But anyways, this helps on the side of dealing damage, and also having them discard. Bonder's Ornament, it's required against blue decks, and also for the card advantage. Actually, you want to run a couple of Monarchs, and I decided to go with the Thorn because it has some upsides from the other from the other ones. Like, for example, if you look at the other Monarchs in color, this one it's pretty useless, the Hunter, and this one it's not that bad, but it also has more power, but it's more expensive, so I really didn't want to use it. And the other option was this at 4 mana 5/2. But the thing is that this is red, and even though it's more powerful, it's in red, so it means that it can get destroyed by Hydroblast post board. So I really didn't want to go through that, so I decided just to stick with Thorn of Black Rose. And also Boarding Party and Annoyed Altisor are great additions, because basically these are the center of the deck. Well, it doesn't seem like it, but you tend to cascade into half of your removal on the deck. So, for example, sometimes I decided to hold into casting those unless I can get the value from the potential removal that I can get from the hand. But some of the time I just go for it, and it sometimes turns out to be in situations like Boarding Party into blinding, and the opponent just have 2 cards in hand, and it's like, okay, whatever, I'm dead anyways, kind of scenario for them, which is pretty good. And also the dream is to, like I already explained, it's to have like Annoyed Altis or into Boarding Party into blinding or into draws, because that's pretty sick. You're actually getting more than 15 mana just for casting 1 card. So it's pretty great. I really like the cascade mechanic on Pauper, and I'm really enjoying this deck. Now for the sideboard, just as a quick overview. 4 Pyroblast are mandatory against blue decks, even against Tron. 2 Gorilla Shaman against Affinity. And the Electricity is against a lot of the aggro decks. Also it's good against elves. Chainer's Edict, because sometimes when you're facing auras, you want your 4th one. Also, this is against auras, and you can and I found out myself actually setting in 1 or 2 against burn because of the curse. If I see it I in the first game I tend to probably just add one to answer that thing, and also it's very good against land destroy because all of the ramp it's on it's on auras, so there's that. Also, these are self-explanatory. These are against burn, but sometimes it has been on my mind to actually side those in against Delver, because especially blue red, because you tend to go for a race most of the time, and most of the time you can stabilize but with a very low health, and this can help you get more turns, because the deck is really not that fast. It's very slow at the beginning, but like I said, when you start casting boarding parties, the clocks gets pretty fast very soon, so there's that. So the cyber is pretty self-explanatory. Also, fiery cannon, you would expect to actually set out the visionary for it, but I really like visionary, so even if I'm running this, I'm still keeping visionary, because this is like a bait card for most of the decks. They need to either kill it or counter it, and if it's resolved, it's going to ramp you anyway. So it's been pretty good. So I don't fear about playing fire cannonade plus the visionaries. So there's that. And that's it. I think I try my best in order to explain the cyber and also the main deck. So I hope you guys enjoy the deck. And if you have any questions about it, please leave them on the in the comments, and I will be very happy to actually answer them. So that's it for the deck, and we'll be going through some matches of the league, and we'll see you guys there. Thank you.